Hello and welcome everybody to the SIG API Machinery bi-weekly meeting. Today is August 25th of 2021. Can you believe we are closing August already? Time is flying. We have a great agenda today. Hopefully we have a great agenda for the next couple of meetings too. I see a lot of topics in the backlog. And it's great to have these good discussions. So thank you everybody for helping us to populate this. Let's jump into the agenda right away. I'm sharing my screen and let's start with Vijay.
Hi. Hey everyone, good morning and good afternoon. A little bit of background about the topic I want to discuss. So I work on ACK team, which is AWS controllers for Kubernetes, similar to Azure Service Operator. And what we do is we consume SDK published by AWS and try to convert those into CRDs and build controllers on top of that. So we ran into a problem where AWS SDK started having some fields which were map of map, and they were not supported by the controller gen library. So this PR basically adds them as a dangerous type. And if you are willing to have like allow dangerous types, then you can have a map of map as your shape in your CRD. So like this pull request will basically unblock both AWS controllers for Kubernetes as well as Azure service operators to like consume newer versions of SDK and not be stuck where this map of map field was introduced. So that's the gist of it.
I don't know anything about controller tools, so can I ask some dumb questions?
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask them anyway, even if I don't have permission. What makes this a dangerous type exactly?
Let me ask another dumb question that may help with that. We've been avoiding map of maps. Why?
I have another question, which we might as well get all the questions out, which is, does it work if you name the intermediate types? Do you still need to do this if you name the intermediate types?
I remember that if you have the identity from the user info stuff has an extra field, and to get that to serialize with protobuf, the slice on the extra thing has to be a custom type. Maybe this is the same thing. I don't know. It's just a vague guess.
Yeah, there might be proto encoding difficulties. Is it a controller tools thing that is broken, or is it a like some sort of generator that makes this hard? I didn't have time to do pre-research, and I'm not sure what's going on here.
Again, to help with that, let me ask, have you actually tested this and tried serializing with both JSON and protobuf and tested all the corner cases?
I'm guessing the output of this is a CRD of some sort, in which case there wouldn't be a proto output, so you probably haven't tested that. However, in the future, there's, I'd say, at least a medium chance that we would want to support a binary output of encoding type of some sort. Now, I think I would expect that if this doesn't work because it doesn't go through the proto encoder, then we would be able to fix that by making the proto encoder like interpret this as a map of a message which has a map inside it or something like that.
Again, let me just reiterate, I believe I've noticed, and I've forgotten why, that we have been avoiding map of map. And I believe my vague recollection is there is a technical difficulty that no one has suggested they're going to solve by changing the proto interpreter.
Yeah. Joe, I saw you on mute. I think you might know something about proto.
I'm trying to remember what we might hit with this. Yeah, I think it's going to be messy with protobuf, so I'm not excited about opening that up. I think, like you said, you could probably work around it by creating some intermediary types. I'm also curious if there is some other underlying reason why this is disallowed. I'm a little unclear what it would hit.
I mean, in CRDs, it is allowed. So why is proto involved here? I mean, I know that in the future, maybe we want it, but today we allow it in CRDs.
Yeah, because it's not just arbitrary maps all the way down. It's like a map of maps of string to string.
Yeah, David asked in chat if if dangerous type is a kube concept or a controller runtime concept. It must be a controller runtime concept because I've not heard of it before. We're at a bit of a disadvantage here because Solly has switched teams, so I think we're a little lacking on controller expertise here.
Okay, I am glad I'm not the only one. I just wanted to see if someone else recognized that. I don't know what a dangerous type is. Do you mind summarizing what it is, Vijay?
What I read from the code was like, we don't want to allow float as the types, and they were the original dangerous types. And then there were certain validations in place which would allow like only a specific types to be a value of a map. Like that's all I got from the source code. Floats were the original dangerous types. And like I opened this pull request a while ago, like 4 months ago. So I'm also lost a little bit of context that I must have read in the code at that time. But originally it was just to work around with floats. We will allow danger, like if the teams accept that we are going to allow floats into our CRDs, they can pass the flag, allow dangerous types, and let the generator run. So it's so I thought of adding the same thing for map of map.
So are you adding this as like are you using that as like a feature flag or something?
It's under the same feature flag, dangerous type. Like if you don't pass -- dangerous type, it will fail. It will continue to fail on map of map. But if the user accepts that, hey, I accept it's a dangerous type, I want to continue with it, then it will allow.
I'm a little worried about giving users like this indicator it's a dangerous type without a really clear like explanation to them of what the danger is.
Yeah, for floating point, it's a matter of JSON encoding precision, right? Like you end up with certain numbers that just don't encode right, and then you lose what you want. So that one's like clear to me, but map of map is less clear.
Yeah, I would think that you would probably either just allow it or not allow it, like unless there was something that you could usefully tell the user.
Yeah. So to be clear, Vijay, there's not a dangerous thing about this that you're aware of. You were just using this as like a gate.
And I have actually, with my PR, I have used it locally to generate the CRDs and controller, which allow map of map. And that has worked fine in like, if I try to use it after producing the output, I have seen no future errors in that.
Yeah, I can't think of any reason why it wouldn't work in a CRD.
Yeah, I would be inclined to just try and figure out why it had been banned in the first place and see if we could at least understand the rationale there, if there was any, and if we think it's fine to do, not even put it behind the dangerous type flag, just allow people to do it entirely.
Okay, Kevin has posted a useful link in the chat window there.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah, but that's not map of map. That's just the kube convention around not using maps.
Sorry, I'm trying to find the recommendation that you're mentioning.
I think it's, oh yeah.
List of names of objects prefer over maps. This sounds like a linter rule or an API convention thing.
Yeah, I mean, you guys notice like when we do envars, right? We create a slice of envars, not a map of envars, as I recall.
Yeah.
And we do that for ordering reasons and stability, as I recall.
Yeah, but that's not a prohibition against nested maps. It's a prohibition against maps.
Which doesn't appear to be here. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I think linting rules are great, and conventions are great. It's probably a little it feels to me very different than this dangerous type concept.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if this is a good idea or not at the moment, but I am pretty sure that you should remove the dangerous type concept from the PR, because that's at the very least confusing everybody.
Okay.
So what did you, like, taking a step back, what did you intended to have as an outcome to bring in this to this forum? Like a recommendation, a go ahead, or?
I just wanted to move forward on this, like maybe in the next release of controller gen, we can support map of map, and that will unblock AWS and Azure from generating Kubernetes controllers for their services. So that's what I intended to achieve from this meeting. Like maybe somebody who's a owner can give me feedback on the PR and give me steps I need to do to get it merged into the master, into the main. And that was my intended, but I'm hearing like the feedback that I got was at least remove the dangerous type first from the PR.
And then if you can, if there's some debate over whether it's good, if you can maybe come up with a summary of the debate and post it to the mailing list, like pros and cons or something like that. That would help, I think. I think this is a better debate for a mailing list than a SIG call. And like if we can't converge on the mailing list, then we can bring it up again. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, and my understanding, I will try to gain the data around why floats are not allowed and what could be problem with map of map. But since I'm not a very efficient with this library yet, I may not have all the data points to provide.
Yeah, that's yeah, we understand. Yeah, floats you don't have to explain. We understand that one. That's yeah. Okay. Thank you. Should we go on to the next item?
Yes, Jeffrey, are you here?
Oh, yeah. Hi, everyone. So I'd like to talk a bit about OpenAPI v3. Just as a bit of a background, there have been some issues around the limitations of OpenAPI v2 that's been open for a while. For example, X indoor strings are unable to be validated properly in kubectl. There are some issues around getting the correct return type when a return type can be a one of, and also things like enum support. So I'll generalize this a bit, and most of these fall under the idea that CRDs support v3 validation schemas, and either for compatibility or other reasons, some of this information gets stripped from the v3 schema when we convert this v3 to v2 when we publish the v2 schema in Kubernetes. So as a result, we end up losing information about the schema when we publish the information. These fields include mostly their value validation fields. So this includes any of, all of, one of, int or string, and also some additional fields such as nullable and defaults. So as a result of this, consumers like kubectl, server-side apply, they get an incomplete picture of the schema, and certain operations are either hard to perform or they give a wrong result. And ideally, we like to represent this data as we like to represent this data that the users give us in a lossless way, such that we don't really need to strip any information when we publish. And this also provides more transparency in our when we publish our OpenAPI. And all these fields that are stripped are supported in v3. And so as a result, I'm proposing two things. Number one is to publish the v3 schema for all types. Since the v2 endpoint is, the OpenAPI v2 endpoint is GA, we'll publish the v3 schema alongside the v2 schema. But the main difference will be that the v3 schema will adhere to OpenAPI v3, and also we will get rid of any value stripping that happens. One additional thing for v3 is that for performance reasons, we would like to try to avoid aggregating the entire schema and only publish the schema split by a certain category. Right now, I think we're thinking about splitting everything per group, such that users will request only a particular group instead of requesting the entire schema. And the benefit of this is that our aggregator will not need to work as hard to aggregate the entire OpenAPI schema for all built-in CRDs, API services, and only focus on that per group. So I have some of the code available. If I can just do a quick demo here. Would I be able to share my screen?
Yes, let me stop sharing. There you go.
Oh, can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Cool. So just as a brief overview, so the v2 endpoint lives at the OpenAPI v2 / OpenAPI / v2. And what I want to do is create a v3 endpoint. And this v3 endpoint, the initial v3 endpoint, because we want to split by group, this will just serve as a discovery endpoint, such that we have a list of all the groups. This may or may not be necessary, but I think for now, just for discovery purposes, it makes things a lot easier. And essentially, given this v3 endpoint, we can go to any path that we want and fetch basically only the resources required for resources and path required for a particular path. So for example, in the apps, this is probably a bit hard to see, but this contains only the schemas and paths available for the paths group or for the apps group. And likewise, we can do this for CRDs. I can just show you the CRD that I created. It's basically one of the example CRDs for cron tabs, except I added a couple of extra fields. Let's see, so nullable, default, just to show the v3 schemas, the v3 fields. So now if we go to API's example, what we get is the v3 schema for the CRDs. And one thing I want to highlight is what I want to highlight is that in the spec for the schema, the fields would be preserved. All the fields that we strip in v2, we'll preserve them. For example, default, nullable, and etc. Yeah, that's all I wanted to show for my demo. And basically, I've linked the cap in the description, targeting alpha for 123. Obviously, some of the design details are still up for discussion. Please let me know if you have any questions.
I have a question. I looked briefly through the cap. Is there anything about client Go? The main reason, not client Go, sorry, kubectl. The main reason for the stripping we do, I mean, there are some fields we cannot represent in V2, but the main reason is that we have a custom validator. And of course, we also want to switch to Go OpenAPI as a library we have in our Kubernetes OpenAPI implementation now. So basically the same validator we use in the server. So some section about this plan, how it connects to kubectl, would be very helpful. Other than that, looks great, and all checkboxes I had on my mind for this topic are there, I think.
My thought on that is I think we heard about it last time, but there's another effort to start doing server-side validation, so that kubectl doesn't have to do validation anymore. And I think we could leave the V2 OpenAPI published for as long as we want to keep the existing kubectl behavior working. And then possibly kubectl never has to understand OpenAPI v3, or maybe it could, I don't know. Like, I don't see the client-side validation we do as being super useful if the server can do it for people.
Yeah, I would offer myself to do a review of the cap in more detail.
Cool, thanks.
But I like the work, and it's long overdue.
Do you want to have concerns over the direction, or I
like the idea of
it's overdue
splitting it
also.
apart. I don't know enough about V3 OpenShift API to be excited about it, but having a smaller OpenAPI document sounds very good to me. I guess I will ask one thing. Why group instead of by version, given that API services split by version?
I don't think we have a clear answer for that. Right now, it's just the easiest way, but this is still up for discussion, whether we want to split by version, group version, or even by kind.
If we split by version, are we lucky enough that we don't have to do any aggregation of OpenAPI, any merging of OpenAPI at all?
Inside of the group, you would merge. There are things like object matter, which are common and merged.
Okay.
But it's easy, much easier than the normal aggregation.
Just something to consider when we review the cap.
That would make it. The argument for splitting by group is that if you assume that people will use the things in a group together, then you've got a complete set of it. If you split by group version, since we're letting people be sparse here, you may need to consume multiple versions to have a complete view of the group. I don't think it's a particularly big deal either way, since it's going to be computers doing this for you. That's the those are the factors I can think of, other than just being consistent and having a if you do it by group version, that's the level at which the aggregator splits. So you've got a very simple process.
Yeah, because at that point you don't end up having to stitch, right? You aren't pulling it from each server, caching, requerying, just redirect to the server. But
we should make some effort to figure out what users would prefer, if there are any users other than our own automated tools.
I would have one more wish, one more goal. I wouldn't be unhappy if V2 goes away at some point. So the implementation should have a plan for that. Like if kubectl doesn't use it anymore and there are not many other clients, aggregation doesn't make sense. And it's very heavy. I mean, it's heavy on memory, on garbage collection and CPU. So if we can get rid of that and make it optional on demand, something like that, and have a plan when it's not used anymore, it's just not computed.
Okay, I can work on adding some of that in.
We do use this output to make our API documentation. Yeah, I guess if you're computing it on demand, then that would works fine still.
And someday, it's not tomorrow, but maybe in a year or two.
Okay, all right. Should we go to the next topic? Looks like you're up, Stefan, or Abu. Is Abu with us?
Yeah, Abu and myself. I will start maybe. So this came up internally in OpenShift, but Mike Spreitzer did another thread in our SIG channel about the same topic. Colleagues noticed that objects go away and garbage collection seems to get confused when the server is restarted. And we quickly answered, of course, it is the case here. And for us, yes, it's of course, because we thought about that, but many people want to know that a server which is not ready yet, like readyz is not 200 as a return code, has some issues like CRDs, which are coming from informers, might be unavailable, and you get a 404. Same thing for API services from aggregated API servers. Discovery, for the same reason, can be incomplete. OpenAPI can be incomplete because it's also based on informers, and RBAC authorization, the same case. Most of the things are ugly, but not critical, but garbage collection and the namespace controller, at least those we know of, they act on 404s or on incomplete discovery. So when you connect a kube controller manager against an unready kube-API server, then you might have problems. And you will notice if you do it on a large scale, objects might go away. So this was the problem, and there was a short discussion and whether we want to change that, especially the out-of-the-box solution. Because of course you can have a load balancer in front which protects the client from non-ready API servers. And there are a couple of ideas how to do that. We can protect ourselves against GC, this very specific issue, like hiding the 404 from GC. That's the idea 2 at the bottom there.
May I ask a question about GC behavior before we go on?
Yes.
Yeah, I just dropped a comment on the original issue as well. Because I know the garbage collector, it will ignore the CR if it hasn't seen the CRD in the discovery document. Yeah.
I think it's a race. Like
the problem is the
parent.
Might have. It's working on a child, and it looks for parent that is not there yet. And by the way, where's the original issue? I don't see it linked here.
No, it's not. Somebody has a link. Please
let me put it here.
And also, I think discovery can come from one API server and the 404 comes from another one. So there's also no guarantee.
Right.
I see. That makes sense. Yeah.
So it's tricky.
Or in the case where an API server, you have a single one and it bounces underneath a running GC controller, right? So GC already knows it's in discovery, knows exactly where to ask for it. It's already been mapped, goes out, tries to retrieve it, and gets a 404.
I have a question. The 3 ideas listed are all about API server.
Can we go back? I didn't get a chance to read them all.
Why didn't we consider fixing this in controller manager, perhaps in the leader election code?
Or the client. I mean, in general, right? Why is a client using an API server before it's ready?
There was an answer from Jordan in the thread. Polling readyz would be necessary, basically. You don't know what you are talking to, and you are not reacting in real time to to the target changes of your connection? You don't know.
So I'll make a claim here, which may or may not be true, but my claim would be that this is mostly a problem on startup and not a problem after you've seen at least one readyz return success.
No.
So, well, at least the problem is different and less severe, right? Like you're not gonna, like if you see a readyz success, you shouldn't then get into a situation where a CR that you've seen is suddenly unavailable.
On the same connection, yes, but connections are invisible almost, everywhere.
But most requests are streamed over the same connection. So I'm making a number of assumptions here. First of all, if your connections are going through a load balancer, the load balancer can solve this problem for you.
But not all of them do. Like the kube proxy doesn't, for example.
That's correct, but
and also simple virtual IP type. It's not a load balancer, it's a HA. I mean, there's common solutions that are commonly used that don't do this.
If you're using HTTP2, then you get stuck with a single API server, no matter what kind of load balancer you go through, until you run into too many connections or too many requests. I guess I'll state my objection to all the API server ones, which is that it seems incredibly dangerous. Like the chance of getting your cluster into a state where it can't actually successfully start up because you've got controllers waiting to talk to API server to make some necessary condition true, but API server isn't answering requests because whatever that necessary condition true is false, and it's unhealthy. So I'm very skeptical that we can anticipate all the possible loops like that.
I tend to agree. I think it's, as I said, I think we haven't really finished talking through the client side things.
Well,
so,
I want to try to separate some of these ideas in terms of their danger. I see the idea of idea one of return 429 for if you're not ready for all requests. I see that as very dangerous.
Right. But we can make an exception for self requests, right? We can recognize.
Well, it's not just self requests.
It's not.
Right? So if you have
not broad enough
managed clusters, then you end up in states where you actually need to correct configuration by talking to the API server. And if you have self-hosted clusters, you have cases where components on the cluster need to start and make requests in order to sort of bootstrap. You can imagine needing to make something like and mission webhook trying to make a delegated auth Z call, right? And so you'd have to find all of those, categorize them, and allow them all through. So I think it's impractical for both self-hosted and self-managed clusters. The idea of returning a 429 at the last fall through point that we have for the kube-api server, when it gets built up, there's like a final handler in the chain that returns a 404 today. The idea of making that one return a 429 before it's ready doesn't solve discovery, but it would resolve the immediate GC problem if I make a query and something I expected to be there isn't. Instead of getting a 404, I'm told to try again later.
I have one more server-side idea. What if we add to the 404, can we add a bit of information that says, this thing doesn't exist because I don't even know about this resource or this kind of thing, versus this individual doesn't exist, but I know about the group version resource.
That feels...
I think it would be better to just include like, do I think I'm ready or not, as like a header or something.
Okay. Yeah. How about that?
Yeah, that I could go for actually. If it's just the 404 included readiness information.
it's like a consistency header, right? Am I consistent? Is this really a quorum read from the etcd?
Yeah, I could go for that. That seems very safe. I'm not sure. I haven't really thought too much about swapping in 429s, but I would be more comfortable with changing the contents of the 404 than changing the return code. Maybe further thought would change my mind,
but I see it as a different classification of risk, right? Definitely the idea of we don't answer any requests would come up. I think that's very dangerous. But if we narrow it down to maybe we can come up with something that helps in some cases, I still don't see yet how we would be able to address the partial discovery problem. Right, and did Stefan explain the partial discovery problem yet?
Maybe a refresher.
Yeah, it's basically when the namespace controller cleans up, it uses discovery to find out what it has to clean up. And if this is incomplete, obviously stuff will be kept in etcd.
Does
Not sure what
API
So
server
maybe discovery should have an indication then of whether the startup is done.
Does discovery even know when it's finished or when it's got a complete?
It knows when it has a complete view. So this is, actually, I remember an edge case where if an aggregated API went out of rotation, I think we stopped including it in discovery. And that had, unfortunately.
Sorry, what did you mean out of rotation?
Sorry, if you couldn't make contact with it and decided that you were that it was no longer active, I don't remember what we do in that case. But generally, yes, we know whether discovery is complete or not, or at least whether it has completed a single sync of both API services and CRDs.
I mean, we've definitely had the opposite problem where incomplete discovery caused clients to like wait forever and never succeed. So we don't want that problem either. Right, like if there's an API service installed and no aggregated API is answering the hook or is answering the phone, then garbage collector waits forever, which is maybe correct, but very annoying.
But that's a separate problem.
Yeah, and do we care about if the HA API servers gives us back a consistent discovery doc? I mean, if one API server gives us one doc and the other one gives us a different one, that will confuse GC.
Right. So if we have a bit, right, that says the server is finished initializing, that's going to increase consistency. I'm not going to promise that they're always totally consistent. That's probably impossible. But having a bit that says, don't even expect it yet, seems like a help.
It actually is possible. We just have to make the API servers store the document in etcd.
I was actually going to go with, you could finally create a document or a type that actually includes all resources and make that thing watchable. It would be convenient. It would not be cheap or easy.
And we have built a solution for this HA cluster thing for storage versions, right? We have, for the storage version API, we built something that solved the consistency issue.
It doesn't have to be that expensive, David. You could make this resource contain a hash of the document. And then, like, in theory today, I don't know if we've tested this, but in theory today, all API servers arrive eventually at the same understanding of the schema, and they should be able to answer requests for a particular hash. Right, you watch this resource to find out what the latest hash is, and then you request it of your API server. And if it hasn't yet computed that discovery document, it can hold your request until it does, or give you a 429 or something.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it, but
that seems like a very heavyweight solution for this problem, though.
it does.
It would be awesome, but
so then the simpler idea that we've discussed is to have the 404 and the discovery return include a bit saying whether or not the server is done initializing.
I can see that being fairly easy to do for 404s. I'm not sure how easy it is to add to the discovery document.
Would it be better to do that, or better to make a client say, if you aren't ready, please reject my request?
That's also a possibility. You could do that in a header. That's similar to the like if present etag.
Right, and it's very generic. We could put that basically on everything. I mean, just in a very generic handler.
Yeah, I could go for an opt-in, like a ready precondition header.
What would the response code be if it's not ready?
We could send back I think 429 would be a reasonable response.
429 has the advantage of automatically retrying in our client.
Right.
Wouldn't 412 be the appropriate thing? Just precondition failed?
I didn't even know that was a thing. That sounds great.
Yeah, that sounds perfect, but I guess we can fix our client to make it retry.
Yeah, that sounds like something you could retry on.
Well, usually the retry.
Well, now we have a staging error problem.
Yeah,
right, we have old clients.
And while old clients won't be setting this this header,
This for KCM,
good point.
Yes.
The issue is like 400 errors are supposed to be things that the client needs to do to address the problem, and like the precondition isn't a client problem, it's a server problem. So I'm not sure it's 100%.
We also return a 404 for a server problem.
429 makes sense as a client error because the client can do something about it, which is wait. 412, the client cannot do something about the precondition. So
what about 503? Service unavailable.
I don't actually agree, Daniel. I mean, there is something you can do about it, right? The precondition says, hey, you need to be ready. The client just has to retry or check to see if the system is ready.
Yeah. Okay. We can solve this in a design doc anyway. It's definitely at least plausible. Yeah, you can read the readyz. Yeah.
Abu, did you wanted to say anything?
No, I wanted to say that with 429, I mean, the client is already equipped to retry because currently for retry, we have to send a response. So we have to send a header in the response, like a retry after. That is usually done with 429. So like with 429, it would be no additional effort on the client side for retry.
Right, but it is a lie, right? If 429 is defined to have specific semantics, which doesn't match this case. Actually,
I take it back. If you send any 5xx or 429 and you have a header in the response with retry, that's called retry after, the client go will retry automatically.
Right, 503 is closer in semantics. It's still not exact, but it's closer.
Sure, we can basically send 503 and also a header in the response to retry. That should do it, I think.
So regardless of what code we send back, do we think that's a safer option where a client says, if you're not ready, I want you to reject me, as opposed to trying well, as opposed to, I don't think we had other, trying to rejigger all of
It's
discovery.
way safer.
Okay.
It's way safer.
Well, I think, you know, I'm kind of with David here, right? If the server is not completely ready, you know, do we want to foreclose the possibility that the client can make use of some use of a partially ready server?
Yeah, what I'm saying is opt in, right? So I think if a client decides, you know what, it's better for me to get a failed request than to get an answer from a not ready server, that's sort of one case. And something like GC and namespace lifecycle controller would probably use that on their discovery calls. But the rest of the clients we have will behave as they do today.
Okay, I thought you were suggesting something else, David, which is maybe today or tomorrow we'll have a client or just a user who will be satisfied with a partial answer, knowing that it might be partial, and say, okay, you know, I can deal with this much information, recognizing that there's more potentially that will show up in the future.
I think there's a large number of clients that are involved in getting the server to be ready in many installations. And I think we should assume that a given client is involved in the becoming ready process, unless the client tells us specifically that they aren't, and that it's okay to give them errors when the server's not ready.
Yeah, that's kind of not my point here, David. I mean, yeah, I think what you outlined is there are some clients that we want to have. I guess I'm trying to make the distinction here. Right. I guess I'm trying to make the distinction between clients that don't even care about whether they've gotten a complete result or not, right? And clients that really make can use a partial result and will use it differently than they will use a full result. I'm asking, right, about that possibility.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any client that would go into a tri-state mode where it's like it does one thing on a partial result and a different thing on a full result. Rather than
I'm not either. I'm right. My question is, you know, I can think of a user, right, as a human, you know, I can deal with that kind of thing, and it's meaningful to me. And potentially, you know, I'm just saying, you know, if we do it with the precondition, we kind of rule this out. Whereas if we do it by adding an info bit on the reply, you know, we allow it.
I think this is a question for a design doc to answer.
Yeah, I'm not adverse to considering it. It feels like a more significant change to indicate readiness on every request.
Yeah, if I were being practical, I would say that like all clients have a behavior if they don't get a response or the server errors out or something today, and they also have a behavior if they do get a response. But it's impossible to write a behavior if you like know you get a partial response, because that's not something that the server communicates today. So in terms of helping people use this, adding a precondition that just triggers one of their already existing responses seems very safe. I'm not saying that there isn't a need for the other thing, but I don't know if I see it.
Right. I'm posing this as a question, right? I'm thinking about future proofing here. That's all. But yeah, fine. Okay. We can deal with it, you know, offline in a more dedicated discussion.
Yep. Okay. Stefan, do you feel like you got what you were hoping to get out of this?
Yeah, just one question. So who's interested in joining Google Doc and flesh it out? I heard Mike was yes, I'm interested.
Yes.
I would review such a thing.
Okay.
I'm not sure I can help write it, but I would review it.
Sounds good.
And I'm interested in the answer or what we come up with as well.
Thanks.
All right. Do we have enough time to cover liens? 9 minutes? Not sure.
Hello.
Well, let's at least just introduce the problem.
Yeah. Go ahead, Masaki.
Yeah, I'm Masaki Kimura. My GitHub handle is mkimura. This is KEP for Lean. I'm introducing this KEP to get more feedback from SIG API Machinery. Yeah. Yes. Could you go to summary? Yeah. This KEP proposes a generic feature to protect objects from deletion while it is marked as in use. And actually, this is discussed in issue 10179, which Brian Grant opened as generalized prevention of accidental deletion mutation very long ago. And in this issue, how to solve this issue has already been discussed a lot, and the concept was called RBAC. And therefore, I borrowed the concept and continue the work in this KEP. And the motivation of this KEP is currently a generic mechanism that prevents a resource from being deleted when it is in use doesn't exist. And instead, such use case is done by each controller, like PB protection and PBC protection. And I found another use case, secret protection, and working on a separate KEP, 2640 under SIG storage. And I would like to make this background logic from the secret protection. And the goal of this KEP is provide a generic mechanism that prevents a resource from being deleted, and when it shouldn't be deleted. And as a non-goal, particular mechanism for specific logic, like secret protection, and also update, blocking update is out of the scope, which is discussed in the issue 10179.
Wait, can you help me understand that the first non-goal? How is it different from the from the goal?
Yeah, first non-goal.
I can. Why don't you let me answer that one? That's actually a reference to the prior iteration of this. The first version of this KEP had a mechanism where it was like a reverse garbage collector that kept an object alive while some other object existed. But then we had a conversation, and
I see.
Has
okay,
changed
it's about object exists versus in use. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, keep going.
And the proposal is add a new field begins to mark object not to be deleted, and only when the deletion request for resource with non-FTDN will be blocked by a newly introduced validation in API server. So it's very similar to finalizer, but finalizer blocks the deletion to be completed, but the readiness blocks the deletion request itself. This is a big difference.
Yeah, does everybody understand that point? That's basically the heart of the mechanism.
Okay.
The distinction makes sense. I am interested in the permissions aspect of this, allowing anyone with edit access to declare, "I'm so important you can't remove me," is significant.
Well, that's already, anybody who can put the finalizer on can already do that. All right. In some sense, the virtue of this is potentially having its own distinct representation. We could put some more specific access control on it.
Well, finalizers do have a sub-resource associated with them. And since you can pin something to already have been deleted, you're deleted, you cannot add finalizers, I don't think, then you can remove after you already delete. So it's impossible to wedge something.
That's not currently a goal in the KEP, but David, if you could formulate a goal around that, that would help, I think.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. And in this cap, len is defined as a slice of strings, and it's really like a finalizers. And this is for multiple users to add lens for their own purpose. And as commented here, this should be discussed more on what should be used as a len, like a key value pair, or yeah. Because could you go down to the how it is consumed a bit more? Yeah, this is per controller len vs per reason lens. For secret protection use case, multiple resource can be used. A resource can be used by multiple resources. So I would like to make len to add per reasons. Could you go down a little bit more? Yes, like this. By doing so, controller can, there is a len, particular lens, if the resource is not used, the target resource. So, but if we define this as a slice of string, it's not, user is not, oh, sorry, how I can say here.
Yeah, if it's just a slice of strings, then it's hard to add both the reason and the identity in a structured way. So like a key value pair where the key is the entity that added it and the value is the reason why they added it, makes it more discoverable. I think that this could stand some debate about the pros and cons. So I hope people will look at the cap. We are running out of time. So I'm not sure. I don't think we can do this justice in 1 minute. I would say I think that this is what people usually want when they add a finalizer, except for particular cases. I think most humans would prefer that it prevents the deletion from starting. So I think it would be a really nice feature on that. I think there's a couple open questions. There's this one that's on the screen right now, and there's also the question of what do you do if somebody puts this on and then somebody on some object and then somebody deletes the whole namespace? Should that block the namespace deletion, or should the namespace just clobber it anyway when it gets deleted?
What happens with finalizers?
I think they block the namespace deletion.
We are at time.
But, yeah, okay.
I guess, to make justice to the topic, maybe we open next meeting with this one and we continue.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good. In the meantime, if folks would take a glance at the cap and leave some thoughts, that'd be good.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
And
thank you, Misaki.
Thank you, Misaki. Yes. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. I want to be mindful of time. I will see you in 2 weeks, and stay safe.
Thank you.